do we just accept them for who they are at this point? Are they just going to have to win every game 4-2? Like, is that just who they are?
You know, it's interesting because the one opportunity to change up that narrative came on Saturday. You mentioned earlier, Andy, the 7-4 win. They put up 7 runs and they finally got to an opposing starter. They did pretty well against Adrian Hauser, scored 4 runs in the first inning. You had the main guys in their lineup contributing right off the bat. And you had Sonny Gray on the mound, so you figured that could finally be a day that maybe you win by more than a handful of runs, and you have to rest the entire bullpen after the hard work that they've put in so far, and it didn't end up going that way. It's so interesting how slim the margins are right now for the Cardinals, because you can trace this back and say if Arenado doesn't make an error on a routine play in the 5th inning on Saturday, that Sonny Gray probably has a much easier time in the 5th. He probably gets a little deeper in that game, and you probably take that big lead the Cardinals had at the time and can turn that into maybe Ryan Fernandez and Gallegos or a couple of your secondary group of relievers, and you can rest the big dogs who have been really asked to do a lot to this point. But because it was a save situation, you go 7, 8, 9, Romero, Kittredge, Helsley, which may be the best bullpen trio in baseball at this point. All those guys with ERAs, really microscopic. But what did that mean is they all pitched 2 days in a row. So coming into Sunday, you knew somebody was going to have to step up out of that bullpen. The thing of it is, it happened. Ryan Fernandez with 2 scoreless innings. It was also fantastic for Matthew Liberatore until he sort of ran out of steam in the 11th inning. Got through one of those Manfred men in the 10th. They didn't score in that inning against him, but they asked him to get 10 outs, Andy, and Libio is only able to get him 9 in that game on Sunday. But you can't look at that and pin it on Matthew Liberatore. You damn sure can't pin it on Ollie Marmol because, again, you can't use the same relievers every single game. You will burn them out. And then in August, you're going to ask, well, why can't Helsley do any good? What happened to Romero? He used to be able to get outs. No, that's exactly why you have to make sure not to burn these guys out early. It's the offense, though, Andy. The bullpen did its job on Sunday, even though it was your secondary guys out there. 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position is the reason the Cardinals lost the game on Sunday, and they weren't able to get the sweep. And because of that, it's hard to climb out of a little bit of a hole when you can't ever take advantage of the final game and secure that sweep. Cardinals are 2 games below 500 instead of sitting right at 500 going into that series in Detroit. It takes a while to dig out of it when you bury yourselves in an early hole, and the Cardinals are finding that out the hard way.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting way that they can try to build off of what happened in New York. And again, on the road again for this Detroit series. Detroit's started out okay. I mean, certainly better than they did last year. It's a tough team to kind of deal with. They're not going to play again today. They will play a doubleheader tomorrow, and then I believe day game on Wednesday. And so you're playing almost the entire series in very nearly a 24
30 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a lot of baseball to deal with.
I think you're right. What time is the day game? It is going to be like a 22 hour.
They start at 2:40 Central Time tomorrow. Yeah, and they'll play both games tomorrow.
In Wednesday morning.
Yeah, so game. Around noon for the next. So very close
hours.
to a 24-hour time frame. We're going to play this entire series.
That's unbelievable.
Good luck, bullpen.
No kidding.
Right? Enjoy your day off today. So we'll see what they can muster up for this series against Detroit. But again, all in all, they took advantage of the pitching opportunities or the pitching performances that they did get. And scratched across just enough runs to make it happen. But you're right. When you say thin margins, I feel like they're going to be dealing with those thin margins for quite a bit of this season, especially if this is how they're going to be offensively in these situational at-bats. And look, maybe there are some promising signs going forward. I mean, Paul Goldschmidt is slowly getting out of that early rut that he was. Yeah, I mean, Sunday. But he went 2 for 5 the day before and was in on the scoring action. And I believe at the time he got his OPS up above 600, but now it's below that. So, I mean, you're going back and forth a little bit. It's been a lot better since this time last week. So we'll see if that continues for Goldie. Same thing for Gorman. Same thing with some of the other guys that have been struggling in the Cardinals offense. But
yeah, you need everybody to come around, and even if everybody's not going to do it, you'd like to see 1 or 2 of them do it at the same time and just have a little bit of a core going at the middle of the lineup there. Contreras has been doing his job. But it's just so frustrating that they situationally have not been able to string it together. It looked for a moment. I mean, if Liberatore doesn't throw that pitch to Bader on an 0-2 count in the 11th inning, then Bader ends up getting the base hit. The Cardinals win the series, and we're saying, look at what they're doing despite the offense still not really being at its best, and you're feeling really good about things. It's just not fair to continue asking that much of the pitching staff and that much of the bullpen in particular. Offense, that game was there for the taking, and that sweep was there for the taking if you just come through a little bit more offensively. And base running sort of cost them a little bit in that game. Contreras, I don't know what Contreras was thinking when he was basically rounding second on a routine fly to left with only one out. Just probably forgot the number of outs. But those are the little things that can add up. And the Cardinals, I don't think, have the margin for error when their offense is not performing to make those types of fundamental mistakes and allow those to add up against you. So, I still think this Cardinals team has talent. I still think it's a good team. But with the way that their offense is struggling, it does set up the expectations for everybody else, and including those offensive players for what they can do defensively to be able to be on their P's and Q's and not make these little mistakes, because you have to squeeze out these wins. You ask the question, every Cardinals win, is it just the same thing? Yeah, even in a 7-4 game when they score, there ends up being a little mistake here and there that causes it to be a game where you go, yep, we do need our marquee relievers to pitch today. We do have to kind of ride it to the end with those guys. And it works. Thank goodness it does. If you had bullpen problems right now, you'd really be kind of up the creek. But in the Cardinals' case, they are getting great performances out of the bullpen. The starters on the pitching side are doing just enough. When's the offense going to join them? It feels like we've been having this conversation for basically the entire year, and it's lasted a month to this point, and yet we're still kind of on the same topic when it comes to these Cardinals.
I mean, it's the same song and dance right now for the last month or so. We'll see if they can evolve somehow in their offense to make it look a little easier on that side of things. 875-KTGR to call or text us with your thoughts on the Cardinals at this point. Chris texting in. Libby did a nice job and also said, can we trust Gallegos right now? Giovanni Gallegos with that game on
couple outs
yesterday, right?
Walks.
Yeah, a couple walks. The ERA is now at an even 5. I mean, look, I guess.
Can you trust him? But what's the role you're asking him to fill? Because, again, number 1, 2, and 3 in this bullpen are Helsley, Kittredge, JoJo Romero, and they've all been incredible. Ryan Fernandez, with what he did on Sunday, I think has proven he's part of that circle of trust as well. Talk about Libby. I think he was great as well, and I think he wore down, and you needed to ask a little bit more of Libby than was fair to ask of him, but you knew that would be the case going into Sunday because of the way the rest of that bullpen had to be used, unless you wanted to put the game on the line with a Nick Robertson or a John King in that spot. You're just going to say, hey, Libby, can you do it? And I'm sure he said, heck yeah, I can do it, and he gave it his best and came up a little bit short, missed location on a couple of pitches, and it cost him. But even Liberatore, ERA is like 3, something like that. He's done a nice job. The question with Gallegos, can you trust him? I mean, he's basically their 6th guy out of the bullpen. He's very much far down the totem pole right now in the pecking order of when you're going to use guys for leverage, and he's still not really been too firm with his command. He's kind of in between where he's either walking guys or he's throwing these pitches fat and allowing them to be hit for home runs. So would you trust him right now to be your setup man? No, but that's also not the role that he's being asked to fill.
They're also not doing it, right? Like yesterday was the first time he had pitched in a week, right?
Yeah, they're kind of trying to hide him, and you can understand why. You'd love to see Gio get back to being Gio, because imagine if you had like the prime version of Gallegos right now to pair with that top 3 who in the 7th, 8th, and 9th, they're making these games 6-inning games effectively. If the Cardinals have a 2-run lead going into the 7th, game's pretty much over if JoJo, Kittredge, and Helsley are available. That's how good they've been. So those are your stalwarts there. And like I said, I think Ryan Fernandez is etching himself into that conversation. That's 4. Libby is number 5, and I think when you have a lefty need, he's kind of the number 2 on that category because JoJo's going to be your top lefty. And then, all right, is Gallegos number 6? Exactly right, Andy. Typically, they're not asking Gio to pitch in these situations, and certainly not in leverage. I think if they get into a spot that's a little lower leverage and they need an inning, that's going to be his spot. But it had to be him involved in the game on Sunday, strictly because of needing to overuse your marquee guys in games 1 and 2 of that series. And imagine this. What happens if Gallegos should get back to being strong, and maybe a Keenan Middleton coming back healthy at some point?
Yeah.
This might be one of the best bullpens in baseball if those two things can come to fruition.
And yet, if they don't get things done offensively,
1 for 12.
What will it matter?
1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. That is the stat that I want you to know from Sunday. That's
the St. Louis Cardinals right now. That's the same. If you need to sum up the St. Louis Cardinals in one stat, that's the stat.
Yeah, and the fact that they're only 2 games below 500, but you're not going to catch these Pirates or these Reds if you continue to just kind of toil around. Every time you take a step forward, it feels like you take 2 steps back by not being able to capitalize on an opportunity to sweep a series. I mean, that was a game where the Cardinals, I think in just about every facet, outplayed the Mets. They had it there for the taking, and they just couldn't find it. You know, they came up with the hit from Brendan Donovan to score the ghost runner in the 11th inning. Some people were upset with Brendan Donovan for running into the out there, but I think that was a play that they put on where he noticed that Ciani had to freeze initially as the runner at second base on the base hit to right field because he didn't know if it was going to get through the infield. Once it did, though, Donovan's job effectively is to get himself into a rundown so the right fielder doesn't try to cut down the run at the plate. You may make the case that why do you need to chance it in the first out of the inning? You could have had first and third, nobody out, and knowing that the opposing team is going to get the same Manfred man ghost runner at second base that you got, why wouldn't you try to go for a multi-run inning instead of just settling for one?
Yep.
I can understand that standpoint, but also, Andy, 1 for 12 with runners in scoring position. Do the Cardinals get another hit in that inning to score Ciani from third? Maybe not.
Nope.
Even with the heart of the order coming up. So I understand taking your shot and making sure you get a run on the board. Liberatore was one pitch from getting him out of it, and he just kind of came up short in that spot, which I do agree with the people saying, how do you throw another fastball to Harrison Bader? He cannot hit a breaking ball. We know this from his time with the Cardinals. He literally would talk postgame and sort of, how do I put this delicately, deride the opposing pitcher on days where he did not get fastballs during his at-bats. He would kind of be in the clubhouse going, I can't believe this guy, come on, throw me a fastball. Well, I can understand why he might not because you have trouble historically hitting anything but fastballs. But I think in that spot, maybe you could have gone to a breaking ball from Libby, but also I think he just put the pitch in the strike zone when he meant to try to get him to chase it up and out of the strike zone. And those things happen when a guy is asked to get 10 outs and he's used to only getting 3 or 4.
That's how it happens. But we'll see what the Cardinals can try and do in this very quickly executed 3-game series in Detroit coming up. Yeah.
Think about this. There's going to be a whole series that happens in just 24 hours. We're going to have to break down a whole series on Wednesday. That's going to be crazy.
How we want to do it.
We're not going to know the results of the first game of the series until we're eating dinner tomorrow. It's crazy.